Hello and welcome back to Above and Beyond CDL Driving Academy's permit preparation course. We're going to be focusing on the Minnesota CDL manual from this point forward, but pretty much all states should have the same exact manual. My name is Brian Hudson. I'm with Above and Beyond CDL Driving Academy, where we do both Class A and Class B behind the wheel entry-level driver training. Class A, we train in both manual and automatics for the exact same price. Class B, we train in automatics. We also do customized training for individuals that have already held a CDL in the past that is exempt from the entry-level driver training rules, and also customized training for businesses. And we also offer a hazmat endorsement training program. My name is Brian Hudson, as I said, and here's my contact information in case you need to get a hold of me with any questions or concerns. As I said in the previous sections, do not take your CDL permit test more than 3 times without contacting me. And if you need help, we'll help you through so that you can make sure that you can obtain your CDL permit. Here's a copy of the CDL manual. You're more than welcome to go through it with me at the same exact time. We're going to be starting on Section 2, General Knowledge. Do not pay for a CDL manual, as they are free on this website to download to your computer. Or if you need a paper version, please come to our school and we will rent you one for $5 and give you back the full $5 when you return it. Basically, we just want to cover our printing costs. So starting on Section 2, General Knowledge, we're going to start with 2.1, Driving Safely, which involves, first of all, inspecting your vehicle. So why do we inspect our vehicle? Because many reasons, but the first one is safety. We want to make sure we have the safest vehicles on the roadway so that we can go home safely at the end of the day, and so can the general motoring public. It also helps us to save from breakdowns on the road. It is a lot cheaper for me as a manager to have my equipment repaired right here in the parking lot, because there's a shop right at the other side of the parking lot, than it is for me to have somebody drive 50 miles down the road and then I have to pay a mechanic to go down the road in their service vehicle to repair the vehicle on the side of the road. Or worse yet, we have to pay a tow truck to come tow that truck back to the shop to have it repaired there. And the third reason, obviously, is because it is the law. You, as a commercial motor vehicle operator, are required to ensure the safe operation of your vehicle and that your vehicle is safe for the roadway. It helps us to eliminate fines from DOT inspectors because we find the problems before they go on the road, so that the DOT inspectors do not find any problems on the road and then give us a fine because of it. Some of the first thing we're going to do when we do a pre-trip inspection is we're going to put the key in our pocket for safety reasons, because we don't want somebody hopping in that truck and driving it away while we're underneath inspecting our brake components. Some of the common terms we're going to use in a vehicle inspection include securely attached. We're going for our CDL, so we're looking for crack, damage, or loose components or leaking components. We got the ABCs, abrasions, bulges, and cuts. CBB, every truck driver has a CB, so we're looking for cracked, bent, or broken components. Bolts, brackets, and bushings, the 3Bs, or the 3Ls, looking for leaks, lights, and leaning. So there's 3 different types of vehicle inspections, which the first one is going to be the pre-trip inspection. That's going to be where, before we even leave the parking lot, we're going to check those important systems that are listed up on the screen before we even leave to try to catch those problems. That could cause a breakdown or accident further on down the road. Second type of inspection is going to be the en-route inspection. So every time that you look at your gauges, every time you look in your mirror, you're performing an en-route inspection. What we're looking for is we're making sure that all of our tires, our lights, our cargo, our brakes, anything that's quickly visual by a quick walk around the vehicle or a quick check in the mirror or a check of our gauges, is all operating properly. We are required to do that within the first 50 miles of when we leave our location to inspect our cargo to make sure it is properly secured. And then we're required after that to inspect every 150 miles or 3 hours after that. And then every time that we stop, anytime that we change duty status, we're required to check those as well. And then finally, the last inspection is the post-trip inspection. We're going to check all those exact same items that we checked on the pre-trip inspection, except for we're not going to check anything that's affected by heat. That would be like the fluid levels or the air pressure levels as well. What this does is it gives me time to fix that truck before it goes back out on the road with the next driver the next day. Excuse me. If you do find any defects, this is where you're required to list them on a driver's vehicle inspection report, which you see on your screen right now. What you would do is you put all the necessary information, and then you would check each one of the boxes where there is an issue. You don't check them off if they're okay. You only check the areas that there is an issue. If there are no problems at all, you sign in the middle there where it says condition of the vehicle is satisfactory. If there are problems, you leave that blank. Do not sign it. And then you sign on the bottom when you, for whoever drives the truck next, would sign on the bottom saying that they either agree that the defects have been corrected or that the corrections are not necessary for safe operation of the vehicle. So first of all, we're gonna inspect our fire equipment, fire extinguisher, our triangles, and our spare fuses. We want to make sure that the fire extinguisher is fully charged, in date, proper class. Make sure that we have 3 reflective triangles or 6 spare fuses. And then we also have spare fuses for every major electrical system on our truck as well. Want to check the steering components, check the steering shaft and the U-joints, the gearbox, the pitman arm, the drag link, the steering arm, and the tie rod. And then you want to check the windshield as well as those lights and reflectors. Here's a picture of a leaf suspension system right there. You want to make sure the springs and the mounts and the shackles are all good to go. Then check the springs to make sure they're fully intact, the U-bolts and the shock absorber to make sure they're all fully intact as well. Then if you have an airbag equipped suspension system that does not have the typical springs and mounts on it, then we have the control arm and control arm mount, the airbag and the airbag mounts. We want to check the U-bolts, and we also want to check those shock absorbers too to make sure they're securely mounted. Tires, we want to make sure our steer tires have a minimum tread depth of 4/32, and our drive tires and trailer tires have a minimum tread depth of 2/32. The steer tires on trucks, actually, believe it or not, can be retreads. On passenger vehicles, they are not allowed to be retreads. Then you want to check that hub oil seal or the axle seal or wheel seals to make sure there's no leak. And then if we can, check to make sure that we have the proper fluid level as well. If we are driving a hydraulically brake equipped vehicle, then we have to check some certain things that you will not on an air brake equipped vehicle. You want to check the master cylinder, which the picture is right there. You want to check your fluid level to make sure it's at the proper level. There's no indications of any kind of leaking. And then you want to check your brake lines to make sure they're not overly rusted and there is no indication of leaking as well. And then we want to go to our brake shoes to make sure there's a minimum of 1/4 inch of minimum material. There's no oil or grease buildup on the drum or on the shoes, and the shoes are not cracked, damaged, or leaking. If we're going to test the hydraulic brakes, it's a little bit different procedure than you would on your air brakes. So we're going to take and pump up those brakes a total of 3 times. Then we're going to apply firm pressure for 5 seconds. This is while the vehicle is running. And the pedal should not move if we hold it there for 5 seconds. If it does, that means that there is a leak. Want to check your belts to make sure they're not cut or frayed. There's a minimum of 3/4 inch free movement. Then check your steering. Make sure there's no more than 10 degrees or 2 inches of free play on your steering wheel. You want to check your gauges. Make sure they're reading in the normal ranges. Every vehicle is going to be different. For one of our school-equipped vehicles, we have an oil pressure of 40 to 80 psi. Air pressure should be somewhere between 120 and 125 psi. And our voltmeter should be reading approximately 14 volts, and our temperature should be somewhere between 180 to 205. Now remember, those numbers may vary by vehicle. Moving on to section 2.2. If we are starting on a hill start and we are driving a manual transmission, we want to reach least that clutch to the grab point and then slowly rotate our foot off our brake onto our accelerator, and then just give enough throttle to avoid rolling back and allow for a smooth start without spinning our tires or lugging or chugging the truck or bouncing the truck up in the air like a basketball. If you're in an automatic transmission, it's a matter of just, well, holding on to the brake, rotate your foot over onto the throttle, and then lightly let loose of the brakes so you can get a nice smooth start. When you are turning, hold your steering wheel firmly. Do not put your hand on the inside of the wheel because of the airbags could cause injury if they go off. We want to make sure that we're holding steering wheel on opposite ends. When you come to a stop, we want to push down on the brake gradually. And if we can, if you're driving a manual transmission, shift down with the speed of your engine so you can maximize that engine braking effect. You are allowed to let that truck roll one free length with the clutch pushed in or in neutral. And then we got to make sure that we're stopped behind the stop line or at the stop sign, whichever one is the first one you see. If there is a crosswalk, we want to make sure that that crosswalk is fully visible as well. Backing up, we want to make sure you start in a proper position, preferably on the driver's side of the vehicle. That's going to give you the most visibility that you can get. If you back on the passenger side, you're going to have a lot of blind sides. As you are setting yourself up to back, look at the path that you plan on backing on, looking for any kind of debris in your path, and then back nice and slow. Make sure that you use both mirrors because as you're backing a Class A tractor trailer or Class A truck trailer, you're going to be swinging the front end of your truck both sides. You want to make sure that you have a clear path to be able to do that. Whenever possible, back and turn to the driver's side. It allows you the most visibility. And if you can, use a helper whenever it's possible for safety. They can see what you cannot see, but you have to remember the most important signal that you and your guide or your helper can have is the stop signal. When you are backing, correct that drift immediately. Don't let it get out of control so that you have to oversteer to get it back into control. Make those small turns. Don't be afraid to do a pull-up where you reposition and straighten your trailer because it's well worth the effort to pull up and reposition than it is to try to force 5 gallons into a 4-gallon pail and end up causing damage to another vehicle. And whenever you're in doubt, don't be afraid to get out and look. That's what GOAL stands for. It's printed on many mirrors. Get out and look. If you're driving a manual transmission, there's two different ways that you can determine when to shift your vehicle. It's going to be on by using either your tachometer, using the revolutions per minute of your engine, or by the speed of the vehicle. Generally, in a 10-speed manual transmission, you're going to be using somewhere between 11 and 1600 RPMs for shifting. If you're in a 13-speed, it'll generally be somewhere right around 1000 to 1400 RPMs on a 13-speed transmission. For upshifting, make sure that you know what your pattern is before you start driving. Remember that upshifting is for speeding up. Use your RPMs or your speed for shifting. You do not use the pitch of the engine. That's an easy way to grind gears, is to use the pitch of the engine. So when we're upshifting, we're going to start with our RPMs, and then by the high, and then by the time that we're done shifting, we'll be back low with our RPMs. And federally required to double clutch. I get asked that all the time. It's the way the manufacturer states that we should be shifting, so therefore we have to use double clutching. Unless you can get the manufacturer to write a new manual just for you saying that you can float gears, you have to double clutch on your CDL test. And remember, do not push that clutch brake, so we don't push that clutch all the way down to the floor. You only push it in part way, tap it into neutral, then tap it into gear. Downshifting, exact opposite. Except for you do have to know your shift pattern before you're driving. Downshifting is for slowing down the truck. So we're going to, instead of starting with our RPMs low, bringing them up high, then bringing them down low again, we're going to start with our RPMs high, putting it into neutral, and then, starting low, putting it into neutral, bring our RPMs up high, and then clutch into gear. Remember, there is a double clutch with an RPM increase. Don't hesitate while you're driving, otherwise you're going to end up grinding gears. And remember, don't engage that clutch brake. Tap into neutral and then tap RPMs and tap into gear. We use downshifting before we start down a hill or entering into a curve. We don't want to be speeding up through a curve or going down a hill. We want to be at the speed that we want to be at before we go into that curve, so our trailer doesn't push our truck through that intersection. It's also called an auto shift transmission, which has a clutch pedal, and you only use that when you're selecting the starter gear or when you're stopping. If you end up stalling the truck, it may not allow you to go back into neutral. So then you'll have to enter in like this special code, just like the old Nintendos, where you go up, down, to the right, to the left, up, down again, hit the start select button, and then you got your cheater code. It's going to be the same way in this auto shift transmission. That's kind of why they're not real popular anymore. And then you have the fully automatic transmissions. You can choose a manual selection to keep it in a lower gear longer for downgrades. The only thing is once you get to the governed RPMs, it will still automatically shift even if you have it in manual mode. If you do test in an automatic transmission, you will be restricted to driving automatics only until you retest in a manual transmission. Engine retarders are made to slow the vehicle without brakes. There's 4 different kinds. There's the exhaust, the engine, the hydraulic, and the electric. Your use is actually very limited with engine retarders. Most towns on the city limits will have a sign stating brake retarders are prohibited within the city limits. And also, they can cause a skid, because if you're on slippery weather and you try to slow down one axle but let the other ones go at the same speed that they're at right now, it could easily cause a skid and make you lose control of your vehicle. Section 2.4C, we want to look ahead. That's the most important space that we can see, is the space in front of us, because it is most often the vehicle in front of us that we're going to hit. So we want to tend to look about 12 to 15 seconds ahead, and we're looking for any relevant information. In this example here, we've got a crosswalk, we've got a crossroad with crossing traffic, a pedestrian on the right side, a bicycle in the middle. We've got a lot of things to be paying attention for. So that's why we want to look 12 to 15 seconds ahead, so we can plan ahead before anything bad happens. We're going to basically be looking to the near, far, and to both sides. We're looking for traffic and hazards, turning emerging vehicles, and brake lights. And we also want to recognize traffic lights and signs. If you cross the speed limit change where it goes from a 40 down to a 30, all parts of your vehicle need to be at 30 miles per hour as they cross that sign. So you're not going to notice that unless you're looking far enough ahead, and then if you don't notice it, you're going to have to slam on your brakes to get your vehicle down to that speed, which can cause damage to your vehicle or to your cargo. Easiest way to see to the side is going to be using our mirrors to the sides and to the rear of our vehicle. We got to make sure that before we leave with our rig in a straight line and stopped, we're going to be adjusting those mirrors so we can see where the tires hit the roadway on our flat mirror, and then our convex mirror is going to open up our visibility to the left or right side of our rig as well. We want to be checking those mirrors every 4 to 8 seconds, and what we're looking for is vehicles that are tailgating us, vehicles that look like they're going to pass us, and then we're also going to be looking for emergency vehicles as well coming up behind of us. We also use our mirrors when we're making turns, when we're backing, or when we're making lane changes as well. And lastly, we use our mirrors as a form of an en-route inspection. So what we're looking for is to make sure that our cargo is not unsecure. There's no smoke coming from our tires. There's no smoke drifting out of our trailer. Anything that could cause an issue with our vehicle. What do you think communicating is? What do you think the purpose of communicating in a motor vehicle is? It's to tell others what our intent is. There's some forms of vehicle communication would be signaling. We're going to be signaling early. We want to make sure that we signal continuously, especially in those lane changes. A lot of people turn on their left turn signal, change one lane to the left, realize there's traffic there, and then they'll shut it off. You want to continually leave that turn signal on so that everybody knows you intend on changing lanes. We also use our four-way flashers to signal that there's trouble ahead, maybe excessively slow speed. We also should be using when we're backing. Most companies require you to use your four-way flashers when you're backing. And then also when we're stopping on the side of the road as well to signal that we're a hazard on the side of the road. We also use our brake lights, so we tap to warn others of hazards. We also want to make sure that we're braking early, so we're letting everybody know that we have tight turns coming up ahead. One thing we do not want to do for communicating is directing other traffic, because there's a liability if we take control of somebody else's vehicle. The first finger of blame is always going to be on somebody else in an accident, and they're going to look at that truck driver and go, well, he told me to go. Even though you may be able to argue your way out of that problem, it's still a problem you shouldn't have to have. We should only be controlling our own vehicle. And believe it or not, our headlights are a form of communication too. We can flash them on and off when there's a hazard or a police officer up ahead, and also when it's overcast, raining, or snowing, not slowing. Various warning devices we have on our trucks. Four-way flashers, we want to make sure that we turn those on first. We have up to 10 minutes from when we activate our four-ways to get our triangles, our flares, or our fuses out. If we're going to be there for longer than 10 minutes, we are required to put our fuses or flares out as a warning to other drivers. We have to put our triangles out on a two-way or divided highway, the picture on the left. We're going to use that. We're going to put them in 100 feet in front of us to let oncoming traffic know there's a problem. And then we're going to put one 10 feet behind our vehicle and another 100 feet farther back behind that vehicle to let traffic that is coming behind us know there is a problem. There's going to be a variation on that though. If you're on a hill, instead of 100 feet behind, you can go all the way up to 500 feet, so that when they crest that hill, they've already seen that warning out there, so they know there's a hazard up ahead. Same exact thing with a curve too, 1 to 500 feet behind the vehicle as well. If we are on a divided highway, then we're going to put it 10 feet behind our vehicle, another 100 feet behind our vehicle, and then an additional 100 feet behind of our vehicle. Because we don't have to worry about oncoming traffic. We only have to worry about signaling the traffic behind us that there is an issue behind us or coming up in front of them, so that they can move over and give us plenty of clearance. Okay, that concludes section 2 of our permit prep course. We'll be adding section 3 very shortly, and we will continue on with general knowledge and moving on hopefully through 3/4 of that.